The galaxy was vast, its stars like scattered diamonds against an endless black canvas. In this sprawling expanse of space and time, laws were as varied as the species that inhabited it. Galactic law enforcement had flagged one name above all others: Lyra Vexus, a deadly warrior from a distant planet whose reputation for destruction preceded her by light years. Known only by whispers in shadowy corners of cantinas and on encrypted comms channels, she was marked with the most severe designation possible: kill on sight. But no bounty hunter dared to take the job. Not because they feared death. Every bounty hunter knew their line of work came with risks. It wasn't even because Lyra's combat skills were unmatched or because her face struck fear into hardened criminals across multiple systems. No, the real reason no one stepped forward was simple curiosity. Rumors painted her not just as a killer but as something more, an enigma wrapped in beauty and danger. And if there was one thing bounty hunters loved almost as much as credits, it was unraveling mysteries. So when news spread through the interstellar grapevine that someone had finally accepted the contract on Lyra Vexus, skepticism rippled through the ranks. The man who took the job wasn't some greenhorn fresh off a training ship. He was seasoned, battle-scarred, and known for pulling off impossible missions where others failed. His name? Darius Thorne. A human with quick reflexes, sharper instincts, and a dry sense of humor that could cut through steel. If anyone stood a chance at finding and surviving Lyra Vexus, it was him. Darius didn't care about fame or glory. He cared about two things: survival and getting paid. But deep down, buried beneath layers of cynicism and years spent chasing bounties, he harbored a secret fascination with anomalies. People who defied logic, who danced between good and evil without ever fully committing to either side. Lyra fit that mold perfectly. She wasn't just another target. She was a puzzle waiting to be solved. As his sleek starship, the Wraith, slipped silently through hyperspace toward coordinates flagged by intel brokers, Darius leaned back in his pilot's chair, boots propped up on the console. "You know," he muttered aloud to the empty cockpit, "if I die out here, I hope they at least write a decent obituary." What awaited him at the end of this journey wasn't entirely clear. What he did know was that Lyra Vexus wouldn't go down without a fight. Whether that fight ended in bloodshed or something else entirely remained to be seen. For now, though, Darius focused on what mattered most: tracking her down before someone else got lucky, or unlucky, enough to find her first. Tracking Lyra Vexus felt like trying to catch smoke with bare hands. Every lead fizzled out, every tip led to dead ends. Darius spent weeks bouncing between seedy spaceports and abandoned moons, following scraps of information that always seemed just slightly outdated. By the time he arrived, she'd already moved on, leaving behind nothing but echoes of chaos and destruction. It frustrated him to no end, but frustration was a familiar companion. One he handled better than most. His breakthrough came unexpectedly during a routine stopover at a mining colony orbiting a dying sun. The place reeked of sulfur and desperation, populated by miners whose faces were etched with exhaustion. Darius sat hunched over a grimy bar counter, nursing a drink that tasted like engine grease, when a scruffy alien slid onto the stool beside him. Its skin shimmered faintly under the dim lights, giving it an otherworldly glow despite its ragged appearance. "You lookin' for trouble?" the creature rasped, tilting its head inquisitively. "Depends," Darius replied, swirling his glass lazily. "Does trouble come with useful information?" The alien chuckled, revealing rows of jagged teeth. "Word is you're after Lyra Vexus." Darius froze mid-sip, then set the glass down carefully. "Who told you that? No one needs to tell me anything around here." The alien leaned closer, lowering its voice conspiratorially. "But let's say I might have heard certain rumors about a woman causing quite the stir near the Krylos belt. Big fight. Lot of noise." Darius raised an eyebrow. "And why are you telling me this?" "Because," the alien said, tapping clawed fingers against the countertop, "I figure whoever catches her will have enough credits to make life interesting again. Maybe throw some my way." "Fair enough." Darius tossed a few credit chips onto the counter, enough to keep the alien quiet but not enough to raise suspicion. Then he left the bar, heading straight for the Wraith. As he plotted a course for the Krylos belt, he couldn't help but wonder how much truth lay in the alien's words. Still, it was the best lead he'd gotten yet. Time to see if luck was finally on his side. When he reached the designated area, the scene unfolding before him confirmed the rumors. Ships littered the debris field, some smoking wrecks, others drifting aimlessly. Bodies floated in zero gravity, frozen in grotesque poses. At the center of it all stood Lyra Vexus herself, illuminated by the fiery glow of a nearby gas giant. Her armor gleamed despite the carnage surrounding her, each plate intricately designed with patterns that shifted subtly under the light. She looked like a ghost conjured from myth, simultaneously beautiful and terrifying. Darius didn't waste time admiring the view. He activated his ship's cloaking device and observed from a safe distance. This wasn't just a skirmish, it was a massacre. Whatever had brought Lyra here, it hadn't been friendly negotiations. Yet amidst the wreckage and devastation, she moved with precision, almost grace, dispatching enemies with brutal efficiency. Each strike was calculated, each movement deliberate. There was no hesitation, no mercy. Just pure, unrelenting purpose. For a moment, Darius questioned whether taking this job had been a mistake. He'd faced dangerous opponents before, but none radiated such raw power coupled with eerie calm. She wasn't just a fighter, she was a force of nature. And forces of nature weren't easily tamed, or captured. Still, doubt gnawed at him. Why had she attacked these ships? Who were they? Galactic law labeled her a criminal, but labels often lied. Perhaps there was more to her story than met the eye. Or perhaps she truly was as monstrous as everyone claimed. Either way, Darius knew one thing for certain. Capturing Lyra Vexus wouldn't be easy. It might cost him everything, including his life. He watched her finish off the last of her attackers, standing alone amidst the ruins of the battle. For a brief moment, she paused, looking up at the stars as though searching for answers written in their light. Then she turned and disappeared into the shadows of her own vessel, leaving Darius to ponder his next move. Darius wasn't one for grand entrances. Subtlety was his preferred method of operation, and so he waited until nightfall on the desolate moon where Lyra had landed. The air was thin, barely breathable, and the ground crunched underfoot like brittle glass. He stalked her ship, moving silently through the darkness, his pulse rifle slung across his back. If she caught him sneaking aboard, he wanted both hands free to talk, or fight. He found her in the ship's main chamber, seated cross-legged on the floor with her helmet removed. Her hair spilled over her shoulders in waves of silver, catching the dim light of the control panels. She looked younger than he'd expected, her features sharp yet delicate, her eyes closed as though lost in thought. For a moment, he simply stood there, watching her. She didn't seem dangerous now, just tired. Vulnerable, even. Then she opened her eyes. They locked onto him instantly, piercing and cold, like twin stars burning through the void. Darius froze, caught in the act, but instead of reaching for a weapon, she tilted her head slightly, studying him with an intensity that made his skin prickle. "You're persistent," she said finally, her voice smooth and steady. "I'll give you that." "I get results," Darius replied, forcing himself to relax. He stepped closer, keeping his hands visible. "Look, I'm not here to start a fight. I just want to talk." Lyra arched an eyebrow. "Talk? Galactic law doesn't send bounty hunters to chat, human." "Galactic law doesn't pay me," Darius shot back. "I work freelance. Besides, I'm curious. You don't strike me as the indiscriminate killer everyone says you are." She laughed softly, though there was no warmth in it. "Curiosity killed the cat, didn't it?" "Yeah, well, cats aren't exactly known for their negotiation skills." He crouched down a few meters away, meeting her gaze evenly. "Tell me your side of the story. Why are you flagged? What's really going on?" Lyra hesitated, her expression unreadable. For a long moment, she said nothing, simply staring at him as if weighing his worth. Finally, she sighed and leaned back, resting her arms on her knees. "They call me a killer," she began, her tone measured, "because I am. But I don't kill for sport or profit. I kill to survive. My people, the Zirith, are gone. Wiped out by mercenaries hired by corporate interests. They slaughtered entire cities, burned our homeworld to ash. All for resources we refused to surrender. Her words hung heavy in the air, each syllable laced with pain and anger. Darius listened intently, sensing the weight of her loss. I survived, she continued, because I adapted, became stronger, faster, deadlier. I hunt those responsible for my people's extinction. Every ship destroyed, every life taken, it's justice. Retribution. And yes, maybe revenge. But don't confuse vengeance with villainy. Darius nodded slowly, absorbing her story. It wasn't uncommon for corporations to exploit weaker civilizations, but hearing it firsthand made the atrocities feel tangible, personal. He glanced around the room, taking in the weapons mounted on the walls, the scars etched into her armor. Everything about her screamed survivor. So why does galactic law see you as a threat? He asked. Because I refuse to play their games, she said sharply. Their laws protect the powerful, not the oppressed. To them, I'm a loose cannon, a liability. So they branded me a criminal and sent hunters after me. Like you. Darius winced inwardly. She had a point. The system was rigged, favoring profits over principles. Still, he couldn't ignore the fact that she'd left a trail of bodies in her wake. Justice or not, her methods were extreme. What happens when you run out of targets? He pressed. When the corporations fall, will you stop? Or will the killing never end? Lyra's jaw tightened, and for a second, he thought she might lash out. Instead, she rose to her feet, towering over him despite her slender frame. That's not your concern, she said coldly. You came here for answers. Now you have them. Leave while you still can. He stood too, unwilling to back down. Not yet. I haven't decided what to do with you. Her lips curled into a faint smirk. Decide quickly, human. I won't ask twice. Before either of them could move, alarms blared throughout the ship. Red lights flashed, bathing the chamber in a sinister glow. Lyra cursed under her breath and sprinted toward the cockpit, Darius hot on her heels. On the view screen, a fleet of patrol ships loomed large, their insignias marking them as galactic law enforcement vessels. They tracked you here, Lyra growled, punching commands into the console. Get off my ship. No way, Darius shot back, gripping the edge of the seat as the ship shuddered under fire. We're stuck together now. She glared at him but didn't argue further. Together, they launched into action, dodging incoming blasts and weaving through asteroid fields. The chase was relentless, heart-pounding, and utterly chaotic. Neither of them spoke as they worked in tandem, their movements surprisingly synchronized despite their mutual distrust. When they finally managed to lose their pursuers, hiding in the shadow of a massive nebula, tension crackled between them like static electricity. Darius broke the silence first. We make a good team, he said lightly, earning a glare from Lyra. Don't push your luck, human, she warned, but there was a flicker of amusement in her eyes. He grinned. Just saying. If you ever need backup. She cut him off with a snort. Dream on. Despite her hostility, Darius couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted between them. Maybe it was respect. Maybe it was something else entirely. Whatever it was, it complicated things, and Darius had a sinking suspicion that complications were only beginning. Days stretched into weeks as Darius and Lyra navigated the galaxy together, an uneasy alliance forged out of necessity. Galactic law enforcement wasn't known for giving up easily, and their relentless pursuit forced the unlikely pair to rely on each other more than either cared to admit. They clashed constantly, her stoic determination versus his sarcastic pragmatism, but beneath the surface, a fragile camaraderie began to form. It happened gradually, almost imperceptibly. Darius noticed small things, how she always checked the oxygen levels before landing on hostile planets, ensuring they wouldn't suffocate, how she patched up his injuries without complaint after particularly rough encounters. In return, he learned to anticipate her moves during battles, covering her blind spots and trusting her instincts even when they seemed reckless. Their partnership evolved from begrudging tolerance to something resembling teamwork, though neither would dare call it friendship. One evening, while hiding in the cargo bay of a derelict freighter, they shared a rare moment of peace. The hum of the ship's failing engines provided a soothing backdrop as they sat cross-legged on the floor, dividing rations scavenged from the galley. Darius held up a crumbling protein bar, inspecting it dubiously. "This stuff tastes like regret," he muttered, taking a cautious bite. "How do you survive on this junk?" Lyra smirked, tearing into her own bar with far less hesitation. "Regret keeps you alive longer than hunger." He chuckled, shaking his head. "You're full of wisdom, aren't you?" "When you've lived as long as I have," she replied, her tone softening, "you learn to appreciate the little things. Like edible food." For a moment, they ate in companionable silence, the tension between them easing just enough to allow conversation. Darius ventured a question he'd been mulling over for days. "Do you ever think about stopping?" he asked, his voice low. "Not just running, but settling somewhere. Starting over." Lyra stiffened, her gaze dropping to the half-eaten bar in her hand. "Starting over implies there's something left to begin with," she said quietly. "My home is gone. My family is gone. There's nothing for me anymore." "That's not true," Darius countered, surprising even himself with the conviction in his voice. "You're still here. That means something." She looked at him then, her eyes searching his face for signs of mockery or pity. Finding neither, she sighed and leaned back against the wall, staring at the ceiling. "Maybe," she conceded. "But starting over isn't as simple as finding a new planet and building a house. It's about letting go of the past. And I'm not ready for that." Darius nodded, understanding more than he let on. He'd spent years burying his own demons beneath layers of bravado and bad jokes. Letting go wasn't easy, not for anyone. "Well," he said lightly, breaking the somber mood, "if you ever decide to try, I know a guy who owes me a favor. He runs a pretty decent diner on New Terra. Best synth coffee in 3 sectors." Lyra raised an eyebrow, a hint of a smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "Synth coffee sounds worse than regret." "It grows on you," he assured her, grinning. "Like mold." She laughed, a genuine unguarded sound that caught him off guard. It transformed her completely, softening the hard edges of her warrior persona and revealing a glimpse of the person she might have been before tragedy shaped her. Darius found himself smiling too, though he quickly masked it with a shrug. "What can I say? I'm persuasive." Their banter continued late into the night, punctuated by bursts of laughter and occasional moments of introspection. For the first time since their paths crossed, neither felt the need to guard themselves so fiercely. The weight of their shared burden seemed lighter, carried between them rather than shouldered alone. But reality intruded sooner than either would have liked. When morning came, so did another wave of galactic enforcement ships, forcing them to abandon their temporary sanctuary. As they fled once again, dodging lasers and navigating treacherous asteroid fields, Darius couldn't help but notice how natural it felt to stand beside Lyra, fighting side by side. There was chemistry there, undeniable and electric, though neither dared name it. For now, survival took precedence over emotions. Yet as they hurtled through the void, pursued by enemies and bound by circumstance, Darius realized something profound. He no longer saw Lyra merely as a target or a partner. She had become something infinitely more complex, and infinitely more dangerous. The chase grew fiercer with each passing day. Galactic law enforcement, desperate to reclaim their authority, deployed every resource at their disposal. Entire squadrons of elite fighters dogged Darius and Lyra's trail, relentless and unforgiving. The duo responded with equal ferocity, using every trick in their arsenal to stay one step ahead. They pirouetted through asteroid belts, ducked into nebulae, and disabled countless enemy ships with precision strikes. Each victory brought fleeting relief, but the constant pressure wore them thin. In the midst of chaos, humor became their lifeline. Darius discovered Lyra had a biting wit hidden beneath her steely exterior, and she, in turn, found his irreverent quips oddly endearing. During one particularly harrowing escape, as their ship spiraled wildly out of control, Darius shouted over the alarms, "If we die here, I'm blaming you." "Oh, please," Lyra shot back, yanking the controls with practiced ease. "If we die, it'll be because you jinxed us." They erupted into laughter despite the peril, adrenaline fueling their absurdity. These moments of levity stitched their bond tighter, transforming mere survival into something resembling joy. Yet, amid the laughter, cracks began to show. Lyra confided in Darius about nightmares that haunted her sleep, visions of her burning homeworld and the faces of those she couldn't save. Her guilt weighed heavily on her, a burden she bore alone until Darius gently coaxed her to share. In turn, he revealed fragments of his own past, a family torn apart by war, a childhood spent bouncing between foster homes, and a career built on solitude. Their vulnerabilities intertwined, creating a fragile tapestry of trust. This intimacy sparked tension, too. On a barren moon where they briefly hid, Darius caught Lyra staring at him during a quiet moment. Her gaze lingered longer than usual, filled with an emotion he couldn't quite decipher. Before he could say anything, she turned away abruptly, muttering something about checking the ship's systems. Confusion knotted in his chest, but he let it slide, for now. Later, during a heated skirmish, Darius shielded Lyra from a blast meant for her, taking the brunt of the impact himself. Blood seeped through his jacket as he stumbled, clutching his side. Lyra froze, panic flashing across her face before she rallied, dragging him to safety. As she tended to his wound with trembling hands, her voice cracked with emotion. "Why did you do that? You idiot!" "Because," he groaned, wincing as she applied Medigel, "someone has to keep you alive long enough to hear my terrible jokes." Tears welled in her eyes, though she blinked them away furiously. "Don't joke right now," she snapped, her voice thick. "I mean it, Darius. Don't throw your life away for me." He reached up, brushing a strand of silver hair from her face. "Too late," he murmured. "Already done." Her breath hitched, and for a heartbeat, the galaxy seemed to hold its breath with them. Then reality crashed back in, accompanied by the distant rumble of approaching ships. They pulled apart reluctantly, returning to their roles as warriors. But the moment lingered, unresolved, hanging between them like an unspoken promise. As they prepared to flee once more, Darius stole one last glance at Lyra. She was resolute, her jaw set with determination, yet there was a softness in her eyes that hadn't been there before. He realized then that whatever lay ahead, whether triumph or tragedy, they would face it together. And perhaps, just perhaps, that was enough. The galaxy seemed intent on tearing them apart, but Darius and Lyra refused to let it. Their bond deepened with every challenge they faced, each near-death experience drawing them closer together. The relentless pursuit by Galactic law enforcement forced them into ever more daring escapes, yet their partnership grew seamless, almost instinctual. They communicated with glances and gestures, anticipating each other's moves as if connected by an invisible thread. One fateful day, while hiding in the labyrinthine ruins of an ancient space station, they stumbled upon a discovery that changed everything. Deep within the crumbling structure, they found remnants of Zereth technology, artifacts left behind by Lyra's people. Among them was a data crystal containing vital information, evidence of corporate collusion in the genocide of her homeworld. It wasn't just proof of the atrocities committed against the Zereth, it was leverage powerful enough to expose the corruption at the heart of galactic law itself. "This is it," Lyra whispered, holding the crystal reverently. Her hands trembled, not from fear but from hope, a feeling she hadn't allowed herself in years. "With this, we can bring them down." Darius placed a steadying hand on her shoulder. "We'll need allies. People who won't sell us out the moment things get tough." She nodded, determination burning in her eyes. "Then we find them. Together." They spent weeks piecing together a network of resistance fighters, rogue diplomats, and disillusioned ex-enforcers who shared their disdain for the corrupt system. Each new ally brought fresh risks, but also renewed resolve. Lyra took charge, rallying the group with speeches that ignited passion and purpose. Watching her lead, Darius couldn't help but admire her strength, not just as a warrior, but as a beacon of justice. Their efforts culminated in a daring infiltration mission to the Galactic Council Central Hub, where they planned to broadcast the damning evidence across all communication channels. The operation was fraught with danger, requiring split-second timing and absolute trust. As they navigated the heavily guarded facility, Darius caught Lyra's hand briefly, squeezing it before releasing it. No words were exchanged, but the message was clear: "We've got this." When the time came, Lyra stood at the console, uploading the data while Darius covered her back, fending off waves of enforcers. Sparks flew as blaster bolts ricocheted off nearby walls, and alarms blared deafeningly. Despite the chaos, Lyra remained focused, her fingers flying over the controls. Finally, a triumphant beep signaled success. "Broadcast initiated," she said, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. "It's done." Cheers erupted among their allies outside, watching as the truth spread like wildfire across the galaxy. Systems tuned in, planets listened, and outrage boiled over. Protests erupted on countless worlds, demanding accountability and reform. The corporations responsible for the Zereth massacre scrambled to contain the fallout, but it was too late. Their crimes had been laid bare for all to see. Exhausted but victorious, Darius and Lyra retreated to a secluded moon, far from the turmoil they'd unleashed. There, amidst the quiet beauty of nature untouched by civilization, they finally allowed themselves to breathe. For the first time in what felt like forever, there was no one chasing them, no imminent threat looming overhead. Just peace and each other. As days turned into weeks, their relationship blossomed in ways neither had anticipated. What started as mutual respect evolved into something deeper, richer. Darius marveled at how effortlessly Lyra fit into his life, her sharp wit balancing his sarcasm, her resilience inspiring him to be better. And Lyra, for her part, found solace in his unwavering support, his ability to make her laugh even when the weight of the universe pressed down on her shoulders. One evening, under a sky ablaze with stars, Darius pulled Lyra aside after dinner. He seemed unusually nervous, fidgeting with a small object in his pocket. She raised an eyebrow, curious. "What's wrong with you?" she teased, crossing her arms. "You look like you're about to face an entire fleet single-handedly." He chuckled nervously, running a hand through his hair. "Close enough, I guess." Taking a deep breath, he dropped to one knee, pulling out a simple ring fashioned from metal salvaged during their adventures. It gleamed softly in the moonlight, its imperfections making it uniquely theirs. "Lyra Vexus," he began, his voice trembling slightly, "you've saved my life more times than I can count, challenged me in ways no one else ever has, and shown me what it means to fight for something bigger than myself. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know one thing. I want to face it with you. Will you marry me?" Tears welled in Lyra's eyes as she stared at him, stunned. For a moment, she said nothing, overwhelmed by emotion. Then, with a soft laugh, she knelt beside him, taking his face in her hands. "Yes," she whispered, her voice breaking. 1,000 times yes. They embraced tightly, laughter mingling with tears as the reality of their commitment sank in. In that moment, surrounded by the vastness of the cosmos, they felt impossibly small, and yet infinitely significant. Months later, they exchanged vows on the same moon where Darius had proposed, surrounded by friends old and new. The ceremony was simple yet profound, marked by heartfelt speeches and joyous celebration. Lyra wore armor polished to a mirror shine, while Darius sported a jacket adorned with patches commemorating their journey. Together, they danced beneath the stars, their laughter echoing into the night. Their life afterward wasn't without challenges. Rebuilding trust in a fractured galaxy required patience and perseverance. But side by side, they tackled every obstacle, their love serving as both anchor and compass. They traveled the stars, helping those in need and fighting for justice wherever it was denied. And though their battles continued, so did their happiness. In the end, Darius and Lyra proved that even in the darkest corners of the galaxy, light could prevail, not through violence or vengeance, but through connection, courage, and the unshakable belief that love could conquer all. Their story became legend, whispered among the stars as a testament to hope, redemption, and the power of two souls united against the odds. Years later, Darius and Lyra built a home on a peaceful planet with rolling green hills and endless skies. Their children, two rambunctious twins and a curious youngest, filled their days with laughter and chaos. The twins inherited their mother's sharp instincts and their father's quick wit, often teaming up to outsmart both parents. Meanwhile, the youngest spent hours tinkering with salvaged tech, much to Darius' pride and Lyra's amusement. Evenings were spent sharing stories around the dinner table, recounting tales of adventure that had become family legends. Lyra taught the kids self-defense, while Darius introduced them to his love for terrible jokes, much to their delight and occasional groans. Together, they explored nearby forests, flew makeshift ships in open fields, and gazed at the stars as a family. Though the galaxy still bore scars from its past, their home was a sanctuary, a place where love thrived and dreams took flight. Surrounded by their children and bound by unwavering devotion, Darius and Lyra lived happily ever after, proving that even warriors could find peace and joy in the embrace of family.